Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 36 of Three Dads and a Console. I'm one of your hosts, Wabba Plays, alongside is Court Long in the new spicy Three Dads and a Console t-shirt. Good to see you, Court.
Look at that.
Great to see you, Wabba.
And we are also joined by the crackhead. I need to explain that, Pez. I saw the Kraken hat. It's on your head. It's crackhead.
Yeah.
He's not actually a crackhead. It's Pez. You know him.
What's the crack and mates? Now that's how you make a Kraken joke.
Mm-hmm.
Or he could have called you the squid hat. Like there's a lot there.
Yeah, and no, instead I'm a tweaking drug addict.
Well, that is Seattle, so
We all got to start somewhere.
We're on brand.
Yeah, we're on brand.
And we are also joined by special guest Tucker Hazell. Tucker, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I am unofficially back on this show after a lost episode. A little bit of background information here. I did record an entire episode's worth of Three Dads and a Console with Court and Wabba, but that never went live because of a multitude of reasons. But I'm finally here for my make do of that lost episode.
Well, we can release it, but it's just a recording of you talking for like 13 seconds, and then that's it.
Oh, exciting stuff. Riveting. That's great Patreon content right there.
Click like and subscribe.
Oh, imagine paying for
Subscribe at a $13 tier, and you'll get 1 second per dollar of time.
Wow.
So let's go.
Look at the deal. Hey, you
You're-
can listen to this for free. This is a tease. The real stuff, you're going to want that 13 seconds. Trust me.
Also, don't go looking for us on Patreon. Like, I don't want people to find like some other people and be like, "Where are they?"
We are not there.
No, but
Quick question.
Yeah.
Do many of you, because I'm going to sidetrack this real quick.
do
Many
it.
of you subscribe on Patreon? Because I find Patreon to not be that like a good friend of ours, Matt Assemble. I subscribe to his YouTube because it's easy. Like I can just click and I subscribe. I find Patreon to not be that good. Like there needs to be a better app. Like I wouldn't ever go listen to someone. I used to be a Patreon member, Kind of Funny, and I never once listened to the podcast through it.
It's tough to like access the stuff that is exclusive content. Yeah, I support a few people on Patreon, not very much. I'm a college kid. I don't have a ton of extra spending cash, but when I really care for a product or content or whatever, and I find myself just binging it and really caring about it, I'm like, okay, well, I've been doing this for free for 2 years now. I'll give them $2 a month for a year, and as a sort of a make good for mooching off of them for so long.
Yeah, I'll pay for Patreon, but I don't use it. If that makes any sense.
The extra content is too hard to access.
Never log into it. It I don't know. Like someone's got to make it better. Like I find it easier just to sub on Twitch and sub on YouTube.
Yeah.
I advise always getting merch. And I'm not just saying that because I called out your shirt, but it's a way that you get something and it supports them. I've used Patreon for artists instead because they had like a $13 tier. They do persona art, big shocker, and you actually get physical prints in the mail, and like that's cool. But when you do it for like a podcast, I have no idea what to do. But
there's also, if you do it for artists, this thing called Bandcamp. It's awesome. So you go in there and like for a band like I Like to Hold Steady, you can pre-order at different tiers for their new album, and then you get sent like autographs. Oh, it's phenomenal. But that's easy to access. But anyways, Patreon to me is meh. Yes, Wabba, you like weird Japanese art. We know.
So as a creator, we actually used Patreon with Daisy Yor, and it's pretty user friendly on the creator side. But yeah, not many people will. At least I have found we didn't have many patrons that would listen to the exclusive stuff. They were just like, "Thank you for doing what you do. Here's whatever, $24 a year or whatever,
Well,
yeah.
And that's what they should do with like Apple Podcasts. Like YouTube has the thing. Like Pez, when you were doing Days of Yore, I was one of your people that like I listened to your podcast before I even did my Boston Bruins podcast. Do you think you would have done more monetization if, say, they could subscribe to your YouTube page by paying, and they could subscribe to your Apple iTunes or by paying?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Like if YouTube has now what it had a few years ago, where you can become a member and it basically is like being a Twitch sub. If they did like memberships, I don't know, we were big 3 years ago, you know what I mean? So like when we were doing all that exclusive like movie reviews and stuff like that, I think it would have been easier to monetize than just doing SoundCloud and stuff like that, because the problem, especially with our content, was we were very adult oriented in terms of language, in terms of like the jokes that we made and stuff like that. So even then like sponsors outside of like Harry's Razors and Manscaped were like, no thanks. You know, even though we had 300, 400 listeners an episode. They're just like,
Tucker, do you guys on your YouTube page on Backlog Banter, do you have people to sub?
We have no access to monetization whatsoever. The only money we've made is through our movie review show, which is on Anchor, and we've made maybe $6 in the past year. So it's money. It's not money, but it's not really money.
It's popcorn.
If you catch my drift. For one person out of the four of us, yeah. Split it 4 ways, maybe you can buy a pack of gum.
If you came to Canada, you could turn that into $12.
Oh. Just go back and forth across the border. Bam. Free money.
You're allowed in August. You're allowed.
Tucker, speaking of Backlog Banter, could you tell... We know you, but could you tell our folks a little bit about you and your content as well?
Okay. Well, I, as previously stated, run a channel called Backlog Banter, YouTube videos, if you're familiar with that format. I do a lot of reviews of games and game discussions and talking about game news with my friends. We try to break it up a lot more than just having a weekly podcast. We record separate things at separate times, which I know is, of course, not something everyone can do, but we upload about a video every day, which is a lot for a channel of less than 400 subscribers. But we do movie reviews. We have a couple different shows. It's a whole variety of content, but if you're at all interested in the things I mentioned, mostly movies and games, I feel like there's a little bit something for everyone.
As I said the last time on the last episode, just do a 1989 Batman or Ninja Turtles episode, and I'll be there. Just
Batman movie reviews might totally be in the works. Who knows?
1989 Batman.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. I have not actually seen the older Batman movies. I'm a very big superhero movie person, but those are my one blind spot.
How about this? You do an episode where you watch Back to the Future, Goonies, and 1989 Batman. Watch those good 80s movies.
I've seen those other two. I am a movie person, and I quit. I hate to quit. Or hate to keep blowing my own horn here, but I'm a film student, and I watch a ton of movies. Batman 1989, unfortunately, does not come up too much in film school conversations, so it's not one that's been super high on my radar. But as a comic book person, a comic book movie person, I of course do want to watch it at some point.
Is that the Jack Nicholson one?
Yeah, with Tim Burton.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
It's fantastic.
Prince?
Fantastic. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Prince soundtrack. The fact that Prince is in a Batman soundtrack, like, immediately elevates it above anything else Batman related that doesn't have
the Ghostbusters 2 when remember Pez, Bobby Brown is like the usher in Ghostbusters 2?
Hell yeah, Bobby Brown. And he had a song on the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah. Great. Terrible movie, but it was just fun, yeah. Terrible movie.
So, Tucker, we have a few questions for you that we ask everybody who joins our program. And the first one is, what was your favorite first console, and your favorite game on that console?
My very first video game console, waking up, I don't know, Christmas 2007, let's say, waiting under the Christmas tree, bright red DS Lite. And that was my first console I ever owned myself. That I wore that thing out so much, it has a floppy spine, so it doesn't close properly, and it's hard to, the top screen doesn't light up sometimes. That thing is a relic. But my favorite game on that console has to be Pokemon Platinum, which is the better version of what my first video game of all time was, Pokemon Pearl. So I played a lot of that game, and all the Pokemon games on that console. Plenty of other DS games as well. I could talk quite a bit about DS games, but yeah, those are my answers. DS and Pokemon Platinum.
Imagine calling a DS Lite a relic. I swear my beautiful orange badge is grayed out, And
Honestly,
I
thought it was-
that's my goal here.
I thought it was hilarious when he's like it's a relic and it's like broken, but he still has it because it was only 2007.
Yeah.
Like 2007.
It barely works anymore with the amount that I used it. And that's, I think, why I call it a relic. But for my life, that was most of my life ago. So,
fair.
It's a nice way of saying we're old.
I'm dancing around the obvious
baby.
here. There's a really ancient elephant in the room, and it's all
it's my Nintendo. It's my NES.
It's funny. My first Game Boy console was the GBA, and that was from Japan. Somehow my mom got an import. I still have the box because I'm a borderline hoarder.
I can't believe you have the box from when
That's
you were
impressive.
a kid. That is.
I was
impressive.
cardboard. Yeah.
I have all the manuals for all my N64 games.
Jesus
I have
Christ.
You're
complete.
Were you fun at parties?
You know it. You think I told people this? I just tell
Yes.
the internet this because they can't make fun of me directly.
There's
Magic Trick, he
that
just
meme
pulls out
format
his
of standing in
GBA
the
box.
corner.
I had that like a SpongeBob game. I still have the box, the manuals. I kept everything. And at one of our old apartments, my wife called me up and said, it's going to be weird. You have to go to the dumpster because someone left a box of N64 boxes outside. So I went to the dumpster perfectly. I found a Mario Kart, Mario 64, and there's X-Men for the Game Gear, which I have boxes, which I scooped up. I should have taken all of them, but now I have a complete version of those games were for my first console.
That's a score. That's a score. Those are hard to come by, especially in reasonable condition.
So there you go.
Or just tuned out for
No,
approximately
it's just
30 seconds.
Wabba's going on. Sorry, yeah. Well, I was reading everybody crying about the whole Lozon thing. You can edit that part out. And I also replied to one of Wabba's tweets with something funny. So, Tucker.
Yes.
This is a question that I'm going to skip a question. I just did that because you technically just admitted. What's your favorite console of all time?
My favorite console of all time is not the Nintendo DS. Comparatively to most consoles that I've played on, I have not played a ton of DS games. I didn't have access to a lot of games growing up. My mom didn't buy me a lot of games. I just had the few that I had and played a lot of them. But my favorite console of all time is, and this is a new one, this here Nintendo Switch. This is the console that I have the most connection to because it was the first one that I bought for myself at launch. I was in that midnight release line at a Best Buy with a couple of friends. Got the last color Joy-Con Switch. Phenomenal memories. But I mean, even at that point, I've been all in on the Switch since it came out and gotten basically every, major release on it first day. And a lot of them are not only my favorite games of all time, but introductions to great series. I played my first Zelda, my first 3D Mario, my first Fire Emblem, Animal Crossing. All these games I got into because of the Nintendo Switch. And that pretty much by default, cements itself as incredibly important to me. But just the breadth of extra content on there from indies to collections of older games and ports of 360 era games, lots of those on there. There's just so much for me to love.
So because I know Pez is gonna go on like a whole.
I saw him clapping.
Yeah, he's gonna give you a hug. But my
so
question
happy.
for you is the Switch? So I looked at the definition of video game console while you were talking. So pretty much everything goes under the whole thing of console.
Yeah.
Jesus, a cell phone is a console based on this terrible definition. But
Ew.
Exactly, because it says a video game console is any electronic or computer device that outputs a video signal or visual image to display a video game. I'm like, okay. So as gamers, we have handhelds and consoles.
Yeah.
Is the Switch a handheld or a console?
I think that, that's us moving into the future where it's nebulous. I mean, does it really matter at that point? I mean, I called my first console a DS. I called a DS my first console. If I wanted to be more specific, and of course, a TV dedicated console would be the Wii that my parents bought for me around that same time. But I would consider it a console. I think any dedicated video game system to me is a console. And of course, you can delineate handheld if you want to be more specific, but especially because the Switch is in between, it creates a gray area where does the delineation even matter, especially for the Switch?
Well, and I think you have to look at it. There are people that have Switches that only use it docked. They don't play handheld mode at all. And you have people that only play handheld, and then you have people like myself that do both. So it would be hard to stick it in a category because so many people use it differently. So I would say pretty much everything but like a phone is basically a console. Like unless you're gonna play Raid Shadow Legends and maybe
phone
like
is a
the
console.
Diablo.
PC is a console
Immortal.
by that definition.
Yeah. It's like I said, worst definition I've ever like.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's not the gamer's definition. Let's be
it
very
doesn't make
clear.
any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
That definition was written by people who do not play video games.
You know what?
I would say to be a console, it needs to be a dedicated video game machine. Yeah. Right? Because like that's its primary function is to play video games. Like,
and then
you wouldn't call your PlayStation 4 like your movie machine because it has Hulu and Netflix and all that stuff on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like you wouldn't call a Fire Stick your console because you can get games on it.
So,
where did you find this definition?
There is another. I do. A computer system specifically made for
Cord, you're cutting out.
Okay. I was worried it was me for a second. Oh, he's back.
All right, Cord, go again.
Well, sorry, because even Pez was gone too. Well, soon this won't be a matter because I'll be directly hooked up. So there is another definition. It says a computer system specifically made for playing video games by connecting it to a television. So the Switch is a console. And that now we can throw out cell phone. Well, actually, no. See, here's the thing. You can use my iPhone. I can hook it up to my TV and play games through Apple Arcade.
But it's a conduit.
Still hooked up through a TV.
It's a vessel.
You're trying.
A video game vessel.
How about this? You know, the good thing is we can play video games anywhere.
That's true.
Great. I agree. This is all semantics at the end of the day, and we're
and we can all agree that the N64 is the worst console ever, and we can move on. All right, next.
Have you heard of the Wii U, my friend? The Wii U is not a great console. I love my Wii U, and it is not great.
Yeah, the game.
I came prepared. Look at that. I got a Wii U gamepad right down here.
I love my Wii U.
Yeah, say it to the Wii U's face.
Got my 3DS. What else do I have access to? I've got my PC. Got a Wii remote somewhere over here. I got access to plenty of stuff. So you guys need a little prop comedy, just let me know.
I love it.
Tucker, my favorite question. Unpopular gaming opinion. Let's hear it.
All right, so last time on the unreleased episode, I said something that really ruffled Court's feathers, which was I found straight up 2D platforming to not be very interesting. Now, we had that argument. I don't necessarily think that it's very beneficial to anyone on this call to go through that again. So I actually came up with a secondary one for this one. And I came up with this as I was playing a straight up 2D platformer today, approximately 10 minutes before I had joined this call, which is that I think that lives in games are generally a bad idea that hurts the overall experience. There is very little benefit to... The game I was playing was New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. The live system in that game does nothing but hurt the experience. You lose a life, you die, and instead of picking right back up at the checkpoint, you lose a life and are kicked back out to the menu and have to go back in, or to the overworld. And if you lose all your lives, then you start doing worse because it kicks you back to the last castle. So there's really no material benefit to getting to having lives. The worse you do, the worse you're gonna do, and to get lives, you have to be better at the game. So it's just an endless cycle of just knocking yourself down pegs, and I found it to be incredibly obnoxious. I mean, games like Crash 4 and Mario Odyssey have been steps in the right direction for their series, and people have, I think, on the whole admitted this, where you want to just keep playing the game and make forward momentum because it helps you have a more engaging experience. If you lose 10 coins in Mario Odyssey, but you can keep going on, if you lost a life and had to be kicked out to the map, that would completely destroy the flow of that experience. And I think that older games, not older games, but games with live systems, if they had a style like Super Meat Boy where you can just go right back into the action, they would be better video game experiences.
I 100% agree, but I will also tell you this. Do not play any NES game.
Oh no,
I was
now
thinking
now
too, like that's exactly
yeah.
what it was.
I'm like, there's a game, and I'll refer to it all the time because it was literally one of the first games I ever played. Besides, I think the very first game we played was Mario, and then we played this game. And the music, Mega Ran does the best remix of this, the Ghosts and Goblins song. So that
Oh
game
God,
there,
Ghost Goblin.
Tucker, you start off and you're a knight and you're wearing this suit of armor. If you get hit, that suit of armor falls off. If you get a hit again, you die. You don't just die. Game's over. There's no save states. Game is over.
Yeah.
How about this? You finish that game. When you beat the final boss, Dracula, nah, it ain't over. It sends you all the way back to the beginning and says, you know what? Let's try it on super difficulty mode, and we're not going to give you any more lives. Just do it all over again. You have to go through and beat it again. When we grew up playing games on the NES, if you, and I put it out as one of the things, and no one, obviously I put it out on Twitter, and no one got it because, everybody's not as old as me, but things that they didn't like about video games. Well, but back in the day, you have to leave your NES on. And if your parents turn that thing off, it's over. You've lost everything you were doing in that game. And there was every game, Castlevania, didn't matter what we were playing, you get like 2 lives and it's it. And when it's over, you've lost them. So I 100% agree, because that is the reason I don't play Souls games. Because I'm like, nah, because I got beat up way back in the day and I don't need to do it again.
Sure. Yeah. The great thing about those games in general, that era of games, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, whatever you want to say, almost all of those games have been re-released in this generation format that allows you to cut through that horse shit and play the damn game. I've played Mega Man 1 through 4. I just played Castlevania. I played Donkey Kong Country. I played Mario World, Mario 3. All these games, I don't cheese it too heavily with the rewind and the save scumming, which you can do, which is, fine if that's how you want to deal with it, but you can just not lose your lives and have to restart, and you can keep making forward momentum in the game, and it makes them so much better. I think the greatest example of this is Mega Man 1, a game that people say, oh, it's an obsolete game, just start with 2. But if you can rewind and save state for that game, it unlocks a lot of charm that I think that game has that is otherwise hidden by NES Live's crap, where it's just annoying. Play games on Super Nintendo Online, NES Online, collections, they're fantastic.
Pez, I'm sure you got thoughts.
I mean, I agree. That's the thing. Right, so, well, here's the thing, right? Like now, if I were to use my NES and play Mario, and I lose my 3 lives, I'm just like, I don't want to do this. I've played these games enough in their original state.
Yeah.
That I'm not gonna batter myself now to go through Mario 2 and play it, even though I love Mario 2. I'm not gonna play it in its original state and get my my butt whooped and then be like, okay, well, I'm gonna start it all over again. A, I don't have the time. B, I don't have the patience. C, I just don't care anymore. I've done it, right? I've been through it. So I get it. I dig it. I dig it.
I brought this up because I thought that maybe one of you guys would be, stick up your butt old man who's like, hey, no, that's what it like when I was a kid. So you shouldn't complain about it. But I'm very glad that you guys agree, because I think it shows a shift in game design philosophy that has, I think, been a positive influence. I went back. I'm a young guy. Clearly, that's the whole joke about this thing. I'm the young guy. But
I could be your father.
God, that freaks me out a little bit. But I own all the old consoles, and I've played plenty of those games on the original hardware. Meaning, of course, no save states, no rewind. I almost beat the original Super Mario Bros. On original NES hardware, but I got to World 8, and of course, you can use the warp pipes, and there's lives that you get a ton of. But at some point, I was just like, this is less fun. And I loaded up on my Switch, and I went to NES Online, and I beat the game, and I'm glad that I did in that state, because it was just frustrating to me playing on original hardware.
For me, as a 38-year-old father of 2, I would rather play a game like Mario Odyssey, where I can mess around a little bit. I love the whole, if you fall in the pit, you lose 10 coins.
Yep.
Start over, right? And the coins were plentiful, and there is a spot for incredibly difficult games, right? But they have to be done well. And as much as I don't like Dark Souls or Bloodborne or Demon Souls, I think those games are done pretty well, where they're hard until you hit a point, and then you beat the challenge, and you're like, yeah, oh, I dig it, right? I get why it's like this. The games we played growing up were just hard, period, right? Like,
also because they were short, and they wanted you to get your gameplay hours out of them. Yeah,
Batman on the NES, like, ridiculously hard. Battletoads had the turbo tunnel, ridiculously hard, right? Yeah. Lion King on the SNES / Genesis, ridiculously hard, right? Like, these games were hard because they were short, and they had to be hard because that was the replayability, right? Not being able to get out of the stupid giraffe level in the Lion King was the replayability. So that's not really a thing anymore. Games are hard, and like Dark Souls is hard, man. And I played Bloodborne for about an hour, and I will never pick it back up because I don't have this in me. I don't have it in me.
Just for a little bit of context, I'm complaining about lives here, but Dark Souls and Bloodborne are two of my favorite games of all time. I think those games are absolutely phenomenal, and I think the reason that they surpassed my frustration with lives is, of course, there aren't lives in those games. That's not a mechanic that those games have programmed into them. But you do have forward momentum. If you get to a bonfire or a lamp in Bloodborne, that is now like a checkpoint for you to always go back to. You can warp to them, all of that. You don't ever restart the whole game. That never happens in those games. And of course, I'm splitting hairs here, but I do think that's an important distinction to make.
So, talking about the live system, I can't think of a game I've played within the past 5 years that uses a life system.
That wasn't intentionally trying to be, quote, retro.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's important because there are ones where they do lives, but they're trying to be like old school.
Right. But there isn't a game that I played where it's just like, all right, after these 3 lives, this game's over. And I've been like, I love this game because clearly if I have played it, it didn't leave an impression on me, good or bad, right? It just was a thing I played and then went in the trash, right? So it's like, I agree with the live system. I get why it had to be that way in the NES and the SNES because like that was the infancy of like game development. That's what they knew, right? Using arcade games. And
exactly.
And so there clearly has been an evolution, we'll say, of game development where you don't necessarily need a live system to make a good game. Because like even if you go back and play like Crash Bandicoot 1, even on the collection, like it gets frustrating, man, when you're running through a level and you're dead, and then it's like you got to start the level over, and it takes your excitement out of it. I would say, you know what? I would say I did think of a game that I think has a life system that I actually like, and that is Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze.
But that's an iteration of a game that depended on lives.
Right.
Yeah, and that's something that I think is strange. And I actually just played Tropical Freeze last year. I think it's a very good game. But I'm playing New Super Mario Bros. U right now, and this game is not that old, but already feels super dated. When I lose a life and I'm kicked back to the map screen and have to load back in, I'm like, are you kidding me? This is like an extra 25 seconds of time that I'm not spent playing the game. And you look at something that really revolutionized this system, Super Meat Boy. Of course, that came out early 2010s, but that you go boom right back into the action. And those challenging 2D platformers where you just instantly restart makes them so much more engaging. And just playing through this game, which I'm not a huge fan of, it's just so antiquated, even though it's not that old.
So I'm gonna skip ahead to ask a question because I think it's around this. So we're talking about like, older games and how they used to have lives, but if you had to remake one game, which game would you remake? Because I think one of the changes you would be was yeet the lives.
Yeah. So the game that I brought last time and I'm going to continue to bring this time because I think this is a fantastic idea for a remake is one that you might not really be expecting from me, but Final Fantasy VI. A game that I played for the first time last year. No lives in that game. RPGs, that's not really a common thing, but holy crap, I love that game.
Same with the people that play them. Boom. Sorry. I love JRPGs, so I can make that joke.
Well, this game is just even as someone who grew up playing modern RPGs and going back to it as an RPG, I played it on my my Super Nintendo Mini up there. I think this game is leagues beyond its time. I mean, it has a variety of characters that few games of that era do. It has a really great battle system in which each character has their own times and their own timings and their own mechanics that work well together, and the story is fantastic. It's got twists, it's got epic cutscenes, and just seeing what they did with Final Fantasy VII Remake. If I could be watching a Square or a PlayStation conference and hear those opening bars of the Final Fantasy VI main menu theme fully orchestrated, and see the mechs walking across the snow in HD with like full particle effects and everything, that would blow my mind, and I think it would be absolutely phenomenal. That's my pick.
I haven't played 6, but I hear a lot of good things. And didn't they remake like a lot of them, but just not 6 yet?
It's a part of that Pixel Remasters collection, which is only available on Steam and on phone. So that sucks. I would replay that game in a collection if it came to actual consoles that I care about. But yeah, that's unfortunate.
So we want to skip ahead because since we last talked, there's been a lot of more news.
Yes.
So now that folks have gotten an idea, and we also, we'll make sure to share out your socials and your a lot of the other work that you do in case folks want to hang out with you more.
Of course.
But we have some topics that it's good that Pez is here because some of it's PC related. And this has to do with the Steam Deck. Not to be confused with the Stream Deck. I can't with these names. It exists. It's something, it's like mobile Steam, I guess, and it's like directly competing with the Switch. Who knows a lot about this? Because I heard Steam and I checked out, but what is this and why it is important? Pez.
First off, it is not competing with the Switch. You want to know why? The Switch is a Nintendo machine, and on the Steam Deck, you can't play Mario, Donkey Kong, Zelda. It is. You could make the case. You could literally say the same thing. Well, the Steam Deck is gonna compete with PlayStation and the Xbox Series X. It's gonna be its own handheld console. So for those that don't know, the Steam Deck it literally looks like a Nintendo Switch. Same design. It will be running Steam's UI, and you'll be able to play your Steam library on this handheld console. Thing is pretty souped up from the specs I'm seeing. It has an AMD APU. So an APU, for you nerds that don't know, is your CPU and GPU put together. So that's how it's going to run.
What's it stand for?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I'm not that big of a nerd.
Uh-oh. I'll do a little fact checking here.
So as an AMD APU, there are 3 different models. It's like $399, $529, and $6 something. I have pre-ordered the $529 model because it is running a 256 SSD, and it has expandable SD slot. So I'm really excited. Maybe, I don't know, I might not go forward with the pre-order, but as of right now, I'm pretty excited. From everything I've read, it has fixed what Nintendo couldn't on the Switch in terms of Joy-Con, like stick drift. So hopefully that is much better. But a lot of comparisons came out and was like, "Hey, this is the Switch killer." There's no such thing as a Switch killer unless Nintendo puts out a Switch 2, right? There's no such thing as a Switch killer because you can still play Nintendo games on a Switch, and that is a big deal. Yeah. And we can talk about Skyward Sword next, a game I don't like that people are going absolutely bananas over, right? Because it's a Legend of Zelda game on a console that you can take out of your house, and that's a big deal to people. self-included. I'm sure Tucker feels the same way. You know what I mean? Like being able to play Mario on the train or being able to play Breath of the Wild standing in line at PAX is pretty awesome. And it's happened, you know? So now PC nerds who have 300-400 games in their Steam library can now take their console and do what us Nintendo boys are doing. Go lay in bed, play a game for a half hour, put it to sleep, and call it a night. And that's exciting. You know, that's what PlayStation 4 owners used to be able to do when they had a Vita. Long live Vita.
Back in the day.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Rest in pieces. You know what I mean? So it was a smart thing for Valve to do. I think it's going to be a big seller, and it is a new handheld / console because they are selling a dock for it that you can bring out into the market. And for those that don't have a PC, you don't have to spend $2,000 now you don't have to spend $2,000 to build a PC if you just want to play games.
So counterpoint to all of that, because it sounds great, and I agree it's not a Switch rival in any way, shape, or form, because people buy the Switch for Nintendo games. No one plays third-party games on Nintendo. If they do, they do. Like Hades, you did, but like if they do, they do. Like it's very rarely. It's for Nintendo. The only way to kill the Switch is have Nintendo games show up on other consoles. Then the Nintendo Switch is obsolete. No one would buy it anymore, and Nintendo would just sell games. If you go over the track record for Steam, it's not good.
Hardware,
whenever they bring something out, it doesn't sell like hotcakes, or it does, and then they stop supporting it, just like Sony did with the Vita. Sony gave up on the Vita way too early, and they were ahead of their time. The Vita was a fantastic handheld, and Sony, I think the biggest problem with the Vita, first of all, was the back buttons. They just made 0 sense. They didn't need all these touch controls. If they just made it a handheld and just let us play video games on it, and actually supported it and kept putting games on it, I think the Vita would be in a different iteration, and we'd have a competitor to the Switch, and Nintendo wouldn't like it. I truly, truly, truly hope the Steam Deck is successful, but I have a bad feeling about it. There's a lot of hype around it right now, and I truly think there's a lot of hype around a lot of electronics. So anytime something comes up, people go crazy. People are getting all their reservations. They're putting their $5 in right now, but they're already getting, supposedly emails are already coming out. It's already been pushed back. It's going to get pushed back again. They keep taking pre-orders. I don't think it's going to be successful because, and the only reason I say this is I've talked to other people that are PC only, and they're like, well, I play my PC games at home. Like I don't need, if I'm going to go on the road, I just use my Switch. PC games aren't going to be that good. If it is different and it does look good and it does play well, then sure, it could be successful, but the barrier to entry is very expensive. So this is going to be a very niche thing. So for example, in Canada, I don't know anybody that's jumping out of their seat to get this thing because it's like over $1,000. Like come on now. Like it's ridiculous. You might as well buy a PC. So shooters and all these games and all these, when you play a PC, it's, clicking heads and that's what you do. You can't do that on this thing. So you're only going to be playing, as a lot of people said, their main audience for this is going to be people busting it out and putting their Xbox Game Pass on it.
My biggest thing as a hardcore PC gamer is like what you mentioned, Cord. It's like, how don't you play PC so you get to use a mouse and keyboard?
Mm-hmm.
Like as a handheld, I don't understand the utility because you lose all those like macro options that I think people are used to and the preciseness of using a mouse. Now, using it as a docked machine, I think there's more utility because people can just pull up. Like in a hotel, you just bring your thing, you bring your mouse and keyboard or a travel keyboard. That's not weird to me. But that's like the biggest reservation when I saw it. It's like, why would you nerf your own playing ability instead of just using a mouse and keyboard?
And when they originally announced their console back in the day, everybody got hyped about that too. My brother, everybody was like, "Oh, I gotta get it," and then no one got it, and it died. And this right now is the amount of people I've heard on podcasts or on the internet who say, "I just want to get it because everybody's talking about it because it's in the zeitgeist." I don't know, man. I yes, the game's already there. You have your Steam library. You mentioned it, Pez, but what are you really gonna play on it?
I've got 2 words that counteract both of what you guys are just saying.
Sure.
Steam sales. You can
I get
get
it.
all the games that you really want other than PlayStation exclusives or Switch exclusives on this thing for a fraction of the price. I talk a lot about my consoles, but I'm also a PC gamer. I've got like 300 games in my Steam library because Steam sales, they drop Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 to like $10, and I just buy them because I'm like, I want to play Mass Effect at some point. And why not? But I've also found that since I've gotten my Switch and now have a job and I do all sorts of stuff, I don't really like sitting down at my PC and playing games because it feels too restrictive to have to be confined to my desk. I like being on the couch where it's comfortable or taking my Switch wherever I want. This allows you to play all those games that you already own and get all the games that you want to own from Xbox or PlayStation that aren't those exclusives for incredibly cheap and play them at a pretty good rate, better than the Switch is running things. And I think that's, part of it. Of course, you're not going to be doing great if you're playing a Counter-Strike or an RTS or a MOBA on this thing. But the amount of games that are on PC that aren't those specific things that will run better than a Switch and are going to be super cheap, there's a huge library there that this gives you access to.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. But the whole point of this is to get new users. They're not doing this to get all you people that have a PC because they're not making money off these things. They make money off subscriptions. They make money off people buying those Steam sales. So I'm saying to you, give the non-person that doesn't have 300 games in their Steam library. Otherwise, these are just things that if someone who has a PC buys, that's going to use when they travel. It's so expensive. I want it to succeed because I want other people to be able to enjoy games and play them wherever. I just want to see this in 2 years when no one's using it.
Yeah. I almost do think it's too good to be true. I mean, that's my first thought. I'm not picking one up, but it almost seems too good to be true, and we'll have to see once people actually have it in their hands and have been cracking it and adding. Because also another great thing about this for those PC players is the flexibility. You can add your Game Pass to it. You can add your Uplay, your Epic Game Store, all of that onto that, and play those games as well mobily, which is cool. But I would say that what this console does have that Steam has never had access to is a visibility in terms of being placed in stores, having advertisements that are pushing the fact that, hey, you can now play all these Xbox tier games on portably.
But they're not advertising that.
No, but I think they might be.
Unlock. But so from what they're saying is to do that, you're gonna have to unlock it and add Windows onto it.
The flexibility? Yes. No, you're right. They're not advertising that.
They're not advertising that. Like, this is what I'm saying. I just went into an EB Games and all that today. I was at the mall. There's nothing about a Steam Deck anywhere.
Yeah, sure.
No, it's not there. It's not in the zeitgeist. You didn't see on the NBA Finals, did Steam do a commercial? The whole point of this thing is to add new users. They were in the zeitgeist of gamers, but I'm talking about who is not already in is going to buy this thing. The Nintendo Switch does such a good job of marketing to everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody can buy a Switch. Xbox is doing a fantastic job right now of marketing to everybody. Sony does a good job based on brand. As a kid that grew up in the 80s, we all know what Sony is. And when the PlayStation came out, that was an easy thing. There's a reason that Google and Apple and all these people are trying to get into this space, and it's not working out for them. Steam is very good at what they do.
Yeah.
And like I said, I want this to succeed. But they're so just like Google. They give up on stuff real quick.
Sure, yeah.
I think so. I had a Steam Link. Shocking. And
sorry for your loss.
It ran. It was great, and I got it super cheap because no one bought them. But like their Steam controller, from what I've heard, is really good. But again, they don't do a good job of marketing their products, right? Because they're just for now, they're just a game distributing platform, and it's really hard it's hard to make a name for yourself when you're just based on a PC being like, buy our games, right?
Yeah.
I think this console isn't. I know that they want to sell to new people, but I also think Steam is banking on their user base, their established user base buying this, so they can sit on the couch or lay in bed and play games that aren't coming to console, like Baldur's Gate 3, right? Or Divinity Original Sin. It's on the Switch, but from what I heard, it runs like garbage. So that could also just be their play right now. Right now is like, let's get our established base to pay for it, and then we'll figure out the rest. Because, dude, the high-end model is a very high-end model, but it's very expensive. It's like $629 or something like that. It's very expensive, and it's beefy, right? It's beefy like a mid-tier PC, maybe like a low to mid-tier PC. But there are some questions. How's the battery life when I want to play? If I want to play Control, how's the battery life? Am I getting 2 hours out of it? Because if so, like,
that's what they're saying. That is what they're saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. Yes, you're gonna get your user base, but after that, you need new users. Otherwise, this thing is pointless. That's what I'm saying. Like, trust me, I think it's a fantastic idea. I love it because you can play everything on it. But I would be the first one to get it and unlock everything. But the amount of people I see in the zeitgeist saying, I don't know why I'm buying this, but I'm pre-ordering it. It's only $5. Are they going to go through with it? Because so many people are saying the same thing. Don't know if I'm going to go through with it, but I put my pre-order in.
Sure, or you do what I did with my Fallout 4 Special Edition and you sell it for 3 times the amount.
How much did you sell it for and when?
On launch day. Actually, I sold my pre-order for about $700.
Because I have two of those, one unopened.
It was the hell's it called? Thing edition.
The Pip-Boy edition.
Pip-Boy edition. Yeah.
I'm hoping the other one pays for a new console.
I pre-ordered it and I was like, I don't know if I want it. And then,
now, is this double collector's edition story something you'd like to share? Because I think that in itself is an interesting.
I wanted one, so I bought one. I bought one from Amazon and I bought one from Best Buy just in case they canceled one. And both ended up coming, and I just said, you know what, let's keep it.
Yeah.
Best Buy screwed me. I bought the Fallout New Vegas collector's edition from them, and they sold my order. My wife went out to get it for me back when were we dating? We must have been. She would have done this dumb quest if we weren't.
Side quest.
And they sold it, so she went to another town, another Best Buy to get it for me.
Good God.
Thank God, because it held its value. So I didn't want to make that same mistake again because Best Buy burned me that day. The wound is still fresh.
But yeah,
Vegas.
Hey,
oh God,
it's a great game. That's my down and dirty on the Steam Deck. I hate the name because I always write Stream Deck, which is also what I did under our topic sign. So if you watch this, you can scroll back, and I changed it while we were recording. The name's terrible. It's a horrible name. But we'll see. Really, that's it. It's like, we'll see. If I get my $5 back, great. I'll go buy something else.
So we'll go around the horn here. Sale. In 2 years, will we be still talking about it? Just a yes or no? And will the conversation either be it was a failure, or people have it but they're not making a new one, and it is what it is?
Steam Deck is the new Vita. It just doesn't know it yet.
I think Wabba's right.
No, I agree. I think it'll be something that we're not going to really be talking about in any serious way in 2 years, because honestly, I can see them making the consoles for everyone who wants them from the pre-orders, making a couple more, and then just being like, we make so much money off Steam. I don't know why we're doing this and losing money. So it'll be cool for those who have it, but I really don't think it's going to blow up.
I'm just while I think we won't be talking about it, I'm going against the grain. And we will be talking about it. I will be talking about the Steam Deck 2.
Yeah, I think Wabba's analogy of the PS Vita is the best. This thing will be hey, let's see how much we can jailbreak it and do whatever we want to this thing. Yeah. That's what this thing is going to be.
In the great words of Fist of the North Star, Ome wa mo shinderu, and then you are already dead.
Nani?
In the I have no freaking clue what you just said.
You just said you already did, and I said what?
No, I
And
get
then my
it.
head went.
You guys weaved out hard there.
Yeah.
So I want to get into one last topic because I think it's going to set Pez off on a rant because he already mentioned it before. And the last thing we would want to do is deny you a good Pez rant.
Oh, joy.
Since he wasn't on last episode. Talk to me about the masterpiece that is coming out and the hype machine, well-deserved Pez, called Skyward Sword.
Ooh, Tucker, go first. You're the guest.
Oh, okay.
Talk about
Yes,
Skyward Sword.
I never played Skyward Sword back in the day. As I said earlier, Breath of the Wild was actually my first complete Zelda game that I ended up beating. I dabbled in Ocarina, I dabbled in Wind Waker, and I've since gone back and played Link to the Past. I played Link Between Worlds. I played Link's Awakening. I'm a good-sized Zelda fan in terms of the games that I've played and enjoyed. Skyward Sword was the one that always eluded me because not only did I hear lots of complaints about it in terms of by being overbearing and being clunky and the controls not working. It also is on a Wii copy, basically just as expensive as a new game. So I'm glad that I waited to get it and I have it on Nintendo Switch, Skyward Sword HD. And I've played probably like 6 or 7 hours of it, so I'm not anywhere near completion. But to be honest, I think the game is awesome. I think those controls work really well when you get used to them. The watercolor design of that art style is fantastic. It's one of my favorite art styles I've ever seen. The soundtrack, the fully orchestrated score is phenomenal. And just, I think that it being a Zelda game and being designed by that team that's designed some of the greatest games of all time, they know what they're doing. And now that it's on a console that can run it well and has control options and has fixed a lot of those issues that people complain about, I think this is the best way to play it, and I think it's a really, really good game, and I'm very excited to play more of it.
If you're excited, you might want to mute.
No.
I don't think Pez likes it.
Okay, I don't like it, but I played it. I played the Wii version.
Yeah.
I haven't played. I'm not going to pay $60 for what I believe is one of the weakest mainline Zelda games.
That's totally fine
out there, right? Which is my opinion. I think if people haven't played it before, the Switch, and you want to play it, the Switch version is going to be the way to play it, right? Because they actually went through and they changed the issues, other than Link being right-handed, but they changed the issues with the motion controls, which at the time, so the motion controls at the time were not good. And Nintendo, motion controls weren't really a thing when the Wii came out, right? The Wii was the revolutionary machine when it came to motion controls. So they said, "Hey, we're gonna try and we're gonna
I got it.
You're good. They came out and they were like, "We're gonna make a motion control Zelda game."
Yeah.
And to me, they failed because the controls were not fun. Right? If motion controls are not fun, you're not gonna want to play it. Like, perfect example, like a game like Beat Saber, right? It's in VR, but the controls work really well and they're really responsive, and that's why you enjoy it. Yeah. Skyward Sword on the Wii was not that to me. So just to me, it's just not. When they announced it, I was just like, really? Like, you have all these, again, my opinion, you have these better Zelda games you can remaster, right? You have Twilight Princess. You already have. I don't want to go on the rant, but it's bubbling up. The vinegar is bubbling up.
I can see it. I can see it in your eyes.
You already have a remastered, high definition Zelda game that you released on the Wii U. And it's one of the best ones, right? 2 of them.
Yeah.
The Wind Waker is such a phenomenal game that I am confounded, confused, and befuddled as why this. I love it. I love it.
Little prop comedy. Get my copy of Wind Waker HD. Here we go.
Why this game was not like the next in line to be released when there really isn't anything they had to do to change it, right? Because it's cell shaded, right? So you can't really up-res cell shading any more than they probably already did. And the controls were the Wii U controls. They were fine.
I have a guess for you here. As someone that thought the Wii U was only good for Wii U Sports and and that because the rest of the games when they kept adding in motion controls was absolute trash and garbage and annoying and made the game terrible. They redid Mario Sunshine and stuff, and they had the emulator ready to go, and they were like, how can we make a quick buck? This is Nintendo. Don't there's no reason to sugarcoat what Nintendo does. They were like, hey, you know what? This thing's sold. We already got the technology. Why don't we just throw out Zelda and see if we can sell more copies? Who cares if people like it or not?
So if Nintendo was just going to make a buck, this is my counterpoint. If Nintendo's just going to make a buck, why not take a game that's already HD remastered and throw it on the Switch? Because that's what
I'm not
Wind Waker
disagreeing
was.
with you, but this
Skyward-
is Nintendo. Nintendo's always going to Nintendo.
Oh, I know. But if they're really going to do as little work as possible, they're going to take the HD version. They're not going to redo a Zelda game that had bad motion controls to make them either good motion controls or just standard button controls.
Yeah.
Maybe someone lost the
about
bet.
Skyward.
Yeah, maybe.
The thing about Skyward Sword HD is that compared to its predecessors being actually really all the other 3D Zeldas have had pretty significant remakes and all well received. This one took a lot of reworking, and at least from the outsider's perspective, not having played the originals and only knowing a little bit about those older releases of the remakes, this one seems like it had a lot of effort into it, which I think is a counterpoint to what Court is saying. I mean, they did a terrible rollout for the news of this game. They revealed the trailer. It was just, okay, it looks a little bit better. There's button controls, sure. Over the last 2 or 3 weeks, they've been announcing tons of quality of life features that you can save from anywhere, that Fi is optional now, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things about making the game better, fixing those complaints that people had, and adding those button controls, making it up-res from 480 to 1080. There a lot of work went into this, and it would have been significantly cheaper to just put Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on Switch because they did those remasters already. So I think those games are coming eventually, but I think they just wanted to give Skyward Sword its time to shine because released 10 years ago, that was the 25th anniversary Zelda game. This is the 35th anniversary. They wanted to, push it on its own rights from that. And I wouldn't be surprised if within 2 years we also have Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD.
You want to make me buy a Switch? Here's how you make me buy a Switch. Remake the original Zelda.
Yeah, it's called Breath of the Wild. They did it.
No, they didn't. Not even close. Remake it and give me that game.
All right, now here's the question.
Here's a guy who bought a Switch for Breath of the Wild. Here's a guy who bought Breath of the Wild and just didn't care anymore. About 30 hours in, it was like, you know what? This game is not that good. And everybody's jerking off over it all the time. It just wasn't that good.
Ooh, my.
I'm sorry.
Now here, let me sell you
any game. You don't have to sell me. Nintendo is just something that just pisses me off so much on a regular basis. And Pez got his rant, so if you want to keep talking about Nintendo,
let's go.
Nintendo to me is a toy company, and they do not hide it. And all they're trying to do is rip people off because they just keep selling us the same crap over and over again. They have no original ideas, and they're just like, hey, here, let's put some poop out here, and people will buy it, and I'll call it Mario. I don't get Nintendo.
I disagree.
I know you do. You love Nintendo. I'm honestly going on a rant here just so that I can wake up in the morning, and then 2 weeks from now, our Discord is just going to be. It'll just be ridiculous.
He's filibustering.
The Discord will be ridiculous, but and we know who will be so angry about this. He'll probably get in a car accident, but Nintendo is just pissed me off so much in my lifetime, and it was a company that I loved so much, but they always just end up making games that I'm just like, what were you why did you have to put this mechanic in? Why do that? Why be a dick? And then they're like, hey, that game you really love? We're going to bring it back, but we're going to give you nothing on it. But we're just going to say it's an HD version when we did nothing. Here you go. Here's a very crappy emulator, and we're only going to bring it out for a limited time. Limited time, people. We could make this game better, but we decided, why would we do that? You're going to buy it anyways.
What it sounds like is that 3D All-Stars and a handful of Wii U ports sullied you on the greatest console of all time with one of the best first-party lineups in video game history.
That hurts my brain.
Let me
right
sell
now.
you.
Nope,
Let me
you
sell
can't
you on a Nintendo Switch.
Nope.
Let me
Now
sell you
this
on a
is the
Nintendo
content
Switch.
I'm here for.
Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart Deluxe, Splatoon 2, ARMS, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Luigi's Mansion 3, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and, of course, plenty more. All, at least in my opinion, the best of their respective franchises. Full, complete, $60 packages on par with anything anyone else is releasing in terms of quality, in terms of content, in terms of design. And, of course, there's, unfortunately, those other things that cost too much and that they don't put effort into. But when you're looking at a lineup for a console that's been out 4 years and has entries in all of their major franchises that are innovative, quality, and content rich, I don't think there's any better selling, and that you can take them on the go, any better selling point than what Nintendo has pushed out.
I don't need to take things on the go. I'm a parent that can barely ever leave his house, and I'm still in Canada, and we're still not in the greatest shape. Well, but Pokemon, and you even mentioned Animal Crossing, and you used the word innovation. Most hilarious sentence I've ever heard. But any of those games, I don't care. Skyward Sword, that's not a good game to me. I played it. I didn't like it. Didn't care. I don't care.
They are.
Hey, guess
but
what?
They're
Bayonetta,
good.
not
They're
a good
good
game.
games, but
Hey,
they
to other
might
people,
not be for
here's
you.
the thing.
And
Exactly.
That's
That's what I'm saying. To me, Nintendo doesn't speak to me anymore. They spoke to me when I was a kid. They don't speak to me anymore. And as a parent, they 100% don't speak to me because all they would do if my daughter started liking it would cost me way too much damn money. Because Nintendo's like, we going to put that game on sale? Heck no. That game never loses value. I want $100. I want $100 10 years from now. In fact, I want $100 and then I'm going to give you a newer version with like 5 more minutes in it and I want another additional $100. That Nintendo to me is lost me, and they definitely lost me as a parent. That's all.
Now here's my question of all this, and I think everything you're complaining about here, from the games not dropping in price, from them re-releasing things for way too much money, all of that is very valid complaints, and they're complaints that I hold as well. I don't buy all those Wii U porns. I don't buy the ones that I find to be not worth that money, and I'll criticize Nintendo gladly for that. But when you go on a tangent saying that the majority of their games are the same ideas as they've always been and not content rich or what I can't remember what he said. I find that
not innovative in any way.
I find that incredibly biased in an unfair way because you haven't played these games. I mean, if you look at the amount of content and quality in Splatoon 2,
you haven't got anything. I played Splatoon. I played Animal Crossing.
Are you telling me there's not enough content in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate?
No. Okay, how about this one? Here's gonna be a shocker. I don't like Super Smash. I tried it. I've tried it on every console since the N64. I don't get why people like that game. When Wabba said to me,
now,
"Hey,
let me rephrase
Wabba was like, hey,
that
that new Nickelodeon thing that looks so great." I literally was rolling my eyes looking at my phone when he sent me messages about it. I'm like, nothing about that game. Hey, but that's to me. To me, it's nothing that excites me. Like, I'll say this again. That's not how I play games anymore. I don't like them. You guys are trying to sell me on something I'm never going to like.
I'm not trying to sell you on. I know you'll never.
Oh, I know you
Court
don't.
is to Nintendo what I am to The Last
Naughty
of
Dog.
Us.
Yeah.
Oh, I love The Last of Us.
Yeah, I hate that game.
My second favorite game of all time.
I hated that game. Hated it.
Now here's the final thing about all of this, and I would say we can easily quell the future conversations that are going to be very aggressive. Is Court, you and your Nintendo hatred is very valid, and I understand that you've been burned by it.
Well, hold on.
Calling these games bad
is,
I think, ridiculous.
Of all time is the Super Nintendo. And I still love that console. And I still love the NES. But to me, I had a Switch. I played Breath of the Wild, and it fell just as flat as Red Dead Redemption 2 to me.
Ooh, I hate that game too.
That'll piss off a whole extra subset.
Oh, no. I'm pissing off one person that listens to our show.
I'm excited for the Court Tucker undercard ahead of the next Jake Paul fight.
No, main event,
what I'm
baby.
saying is, Tucker, I just don't like it anymore. Like, Mario Odyssey was a great game. I really like that game. Tropical Freeze, I never got to play it until the Switch. I like that game. But every other time I tried to get back into Smash, I put it in,
Sure.
I bought it, and I'm like, but Mario Maker 2, loved it. That was a great game. And that was probably the most innovative game that Nintendo's brought out since even the original Sight Bike. I mean, people don't realize that it had all the creator stuff on Sight Bike, and you had to create tracks and all that. And that was great. And then not a lot of games built on that, which was phenomenal. But in Mario Maker 2, you get more creative. They took Little Big Planet and blew it out of the water and was like, hey, you know this little thing you did? We're gonna just make the ultimate. Except for the fact that I wish you could have done like if you were 3D Mario and you went down the tube and you popped out, you could be 2D Mario. Like stuff like that, they wouldn't let you do. That was my imagination to make the ultimate Mario game. But every other game I kept trying or buying on the Switch, I was like, meh. It didn't speak to me. But to me, I'm very happy that I got to play Mario Odyssey. It's probably one of my favorite games in the last 10 years. But the rest of the Switch, I don't need a console on the go. And so when my cousin was like, hey, I would love this thing, I was like, hey, I'll sell it to you. I gave him a great deal. I had 2 Pro controllers. I had a bunch of games for it. I never used it. The thing collected so much dust. It's doing the same thing my PS5 is doing right now. It's collecting dust. And I am a huge Sony guy, and right now my PS5, I don't play it. I play my Xbox and only my Xbox.
Your Ratchet and Clank machine.
Yeah, pretty much. That's it.
So
Miles Morales and Ratchet and Clank, amazing games. Probably 2 of my favorite games for this year.
Did you play Astro?
Oh, Astro was
Astro's
unbelievable. Astro honestly could be game of the year. It should be in the discussion, but people won't because they'll say it's just a demo, which is fine. But to me, I said to Pez, I just bought Death's Door, and it was the first time ever where I'm like, I'm gonna buy this on Xbox. Because that's, to me right now, is the better place to play. It gives me more value. My way I choose games now, Tucker, is about value.
Of course.
And Nintendo doesn't have it anymore. And even Sony right now, they just keep kicking me while I'm down. But Xbox and Microsoft, they give me a ton of value.
Course,
so I go that way. That is the way I game now. If I was still in my, like when the Nintendo Wii came out, I was excited for it. I was very excited for it. And then they brought out what was it? Was it Galaxy that had the motion controls? I got really angry at Nintendo.
Motion controls where you shake it occasionally?
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh no.
You didn't like Mario Galaxy?
I love that game if I could just turn off the motion controls. I didn't want to have to do that stuff.
The pointer.
I just didn't want to do it. I kept playing the game. I did it. I finished that game. I thought that game was one of the best Marios I've ever played. But the Nintendo trying to pigeonhole this thing into every one of their games pissed me off, and they do it all the time. They pigeonhole it in. Sony does the same thing. They're
just
like,
wait till Steam does that. You're gonna. What if you start to see games where they try to use a back touchpad like Vita did?
Exactly.
Is there a back touchpad on Steam back?
I have no idea.
I don't think there is.
What we're saying
it looks like it's in the front, like 2 mouse pads.
To me, I would love if developers decided, hey, just because the console has this feature doesn't mean you got to use it. Just make the best game, man. Stop pigeonholing stuff in. You're talking about Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword and Galaxy would do a lot better if they didn't have motion controls.
I totally agree.
Even Mario Odyssey. Did I ever use any of the motion controls? Hell no.
No.
I didn't either.
It was entirely optional.
No, it wasn't, because certain stars you couldn't get unless you used motion controls, and I wasn't about to do it.
True.
You can beat the game without getting those stars, though. So
yeah, but as someone who really liked the game and wanted to get all the stars, it really pissed me off that I couldn't
100% that game
because I had to do motion controls to get.
I also chose to bring Super Mario Odyssey on my discussion of top 100 games of all time with Jared Petty.
It's definitely it. You know
that was my choice.
It should be in there because that is probably one of the.
It is.
To me, Super Mario World is the best. Then it's Super Mario Brothers 3. But I almost want to put Odyssey above Galaxy and put it up there in the top 5. Like Odyssey is, it was a chef's kiss to people that grew up with Mario. Everything about that game. That was everybody said the Switch is their Zelda machine. It was my Mario Odyssey machine. And after I played it and played it and played it and played it and played it, I had no other reason to go to that Switch. That's all.
That's fair.
Has Wabba anything to say?
No, I don't play Nintendo.
No, he doesn't play Nintendo.
No. So that's going to wrap up episode 36 of Three Dads and a Console. Want to thank everybody for joining us, but we also want to thank special guest Tucker Hazell. Tucker,
Thank you.
if folks want to hang out with you, where can they find you?
You can find me, and I would very much appreciate if you did, on Twitter and YouTube. Twitter is just my name, Tucker Hazell, TuckerHazell, 2 L's, on Twitter, and Backlog Banter on YouTube. If you see a little purple galaxy with a BLB on there, that's that. And we've got we've got a lot of videos coming out. So keep an eye out for those, and I would love if you hit me up on Twitter and just like respond to one of my tweets, and that'll make my day. I promise you.
Love it. And if you want to hang out with us, follow us on Twitter, 3DadsPod, or subscribe to our YouTube where you can watch this and you can see us roll our eyes when someone goes on a rant. It's great. No,
there was a lot of clapping this episode, so
a lot of clapping while muted.
That's just how great
honestly,
I am.
Tucker, if you remember on the lost episode when we were talking, I kept saying to Tucker over and over again, Pez is missing. Like, Pez is missing this. This is
so
the Pez episode.
It all worked out. But you have to search 3 Dads and a Console on YouTube. Once we get to 100 subscribers, then we get a vanity link. So please hit that subscribe button, rate, comment, subscribe, all that other, gamer sentences. And also rate and review us on your podcast platform of choice. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you in the next episode.